Let's shift focus a little bit now. A coach often knows an athlete's body as well as the athlete themselves. For one of the foremost sport coaches in the country, Lindsey Parry, he's noticed a variety of responses to his athletes that have suffered and since survived the coronavirus. I spoke to him about what he's noticed the effects on athletes are, both professional and recreational.
Firstly, the degree to which everyone gets sick is completely different. And then regardless of how sick people get, and that's for me the most difficult thing about COVID is that some people that got very minor symptoms, when we did return to training once they were asymptomatic, really struggled with heart rate, but also really struggled with fatigue. So a very short session on a treadmill would leave them exhausted for hours. And others that were really sick came back and actually were fine and training well quite soon. But literally everybody had this very unique response.
Explain to us what the ongoing study is that they're busy with at SEMLI at the University of Pretoria.
Yeah, of course, I'm not personally involved in it, but I have athletes, and I'm always happy to send athletes that way. And it's a 2-part study, so they've got a study where people fill out a questionnaire so that they can try and get a better understanding of symptoms, common symptoms, and as I said, what day, what's happening, how quickly do people recover, and then of course a questionnaire post, how long is it taking people to recover, what are they doing, how are they training, and then there's a more in-depth study where if they can get athletes that are currently isolating so that they can run a couple of tests on these athletes to try and figure out when is it safe to return to play. And look, again, I'm talking about results that are not yet finalized. So this is not, may or may not end up in a peer-reviewed article. And of course, at that stage, we'll know more. But indications are that they are seeing in both symptomatic and asymptomatic patients changes to the cardiac muscle. So I have had a client referred to a cardiologist based on the results from those tests. And I was informed informally that there are athletes that are asymptomatic that are also presenting with those same changes. The cardiologist that we consulted was of the opinion that those cardiac changes were consistent with myocarditis, which is an infection of the smooth cardiac muscle. And it is very dangerous for athletes to get myocarditis. Normally, the only way you get myocarditis is by training very hard while suffering from a viral infection. And that often leads people to need to rest for up to 6 months, so 3 to 6 months of no exercise. So really, we even though we've known about the disease for a year, we still, I think the moral here is that we still know so little about it. So even asymptomatic people can have changes in the cardiac muscle that they do not know about. And therefore, when you return to exercise, you really need to do so extremely carefully, monitor heart rate. If there's inconsistency in your heart rate, if it's jumping all over the place, if it spikes very suddenly with low intensity exercise, you need to go and consult with a specialist.
What you're explaining now, though, is that if somebody themselves notices that they're perhaps like not really feeling themselves, then they should monitor their heart rate. Am I right in understanding it like that?
Absolutely. And with the technology we've got available now, most wrist units that people use also track heart rate variability. So, what you said, it is quite frightening on one hand, because someone could have COVID, have no idea that they've had COVID, carry on training hard, and something could happen. Fortunately, we haven't seen anything there. So we also can't conclusively say that those cardiac changes are dangerous, but it would be irresponsible to ignore the fact that that's happening. So with most wrist units now actually measuring both heart rate and heart rate variability. Heart rate variability in particular can give us a really good idea if the system is under strain.
how vulnerable are fit people to getting the coronavirus?
Yeah, so exercise, regular, moderate exercise boosts the immune system. Comrades, training for comrades is not regular, moderate exercise. It's regular, extreme exercise. And when you move beyond that into the realm of elite sport, it's even more so. When you train that hard and you get your body on that knife edge, then your immune system actually does drop. And that is why already, even pre-COVID, if you go to something like the Olympic Games, there is always hand sanitizer everywhere. They are anal about washing hands. They've all got team doctors that are checking them up, tracking them. And even with all those precautions, there's a polyclinic in the Olympic Village for a reason. People get sick. And so that is the reason why, when we're getting into that peak training of comrades, the final 10 weeks, so the seven of the final 10 weeks, those are our biggest training blocks. We are at risk of picking up infections. So exercise is really good. Exercise boosts the immune system. Even though this new COVID strain has been less discriminate, you still have a much better chance of surviving if you are looking after your health and if you are staying fit. And obviously, if you're going over to the other extreme and training really hard, training for things like comrades or trying to be a professional athlete, you need to take extra precautions. You need to protect yourself because you are immunocompromised.
And let's conclude your sport here on Morning Live with the question that we asked you, where you had an opportunity to get involved in the sports segment on Twitter. We are